Member of the Super Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for being here.
Ezra, good to be with you.
So what about it, Congressman? What if President Obama stood up tonight and said he would not sign any legislation coming out of your Super Committee that does not include action on jobs? What would be the response?
Well, I'm not sure what the response to that would be immediately, but I do believe that the so-called Super Committee, the Joint Committee, has to make jobs part of its mandate. I said that in my opening statement today, made the points that you've emphasized here, which is that the best way to deal with our deficit in the short term is to get people back to work and get the economy moving again. You can deal with that in the context of long-term deficit reduction, but not only should we do nothing to hurt the fragile economy in the short term, there are things that we can do to give it a little bit of a boost, and we should be doing that.
And you know what? I think it's always worth defining what the Super Committee has, the powers it has, because it's really a procedural advantage, right? What the Super Committee is, it is a committee that once it agrees on a proposal, if it indeed does, that proposal cannot be filibustered, it cannot be amended, and it is backed up by this trigger. And so, in effect, what we've made happen here is we've made it much easier to pass deficit reduction than it would normally be in this country, but we have not given jobs the same types of procedural advantages. Is that a fair enough way of explaining it?
Well, yes, except for the fact that the Super Committee has the power to include anything it wants within this package. And I would argue that, in fact, putting people back to work, making sure that we generate and create more jobs is part of a deficit reduction mandate. And again, you have to look at this over the space of time. But you're right about the procedural advantage. This is what we call a fast track proposal. It's used with respect to closing military bases around the country, which is always difficult politically. And the idea is you put all of that plan in one place and you have an up or down vote. And so that's what it will be. But again, the committee is not limited to simply cutting, for example. We've made it very clear that deficit reduction has to be done in a balanced way, nor is it prohibited in any way from saying part of our strategy for reducing the deficit is to get the economy moving more quickly and get people back to work.
And this morning in the opening statements, Representative Hensarling made the point. He argued that deficit reduction was itself a jobs program, that you didn't need any more action for short-term economic support, because if you're reducing the long-term deficit, that would be enough. Is that going to be enough for the Democrats on the committee?
No, that's not going to be enough. Look, I think we all recognize that in the short term especially, for example, just cutting, as some of our Republican colleagues have proposed, is actually counterproductive. That's not just me saying that. That's the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Chairman Bernanke, saying deep cuts would hurt the economy. Even the bipartisan commissions, Simpson, Bowles, Rivlin, Domenici, made it very clear that the deficit reduction plan should take a long view and do nothing to hurt the short term, again, for the reasons we're talking about. The longer the economy is stalled, the longer people are hurting and out of work, but also the worse the deficit gets. A big part of the current deficit we're facing right now is due to the fact that we've been in this sluggish economy. So let's get the economy moving again as part of a deficit reduction plan. That's not enough to deal with the deficit in the longer term. You have to do other things, but you can phase them in over a period of time. When you're dealing with a deficit, you want a glide path landing, not a crash landing.
Yeah, I think in general you want a glide path landing and not a crash landing. I can't think of too many alternative scenarios there. And tonight, what are you hoping to hear from the president? What would be helpful to you in your work?
Well, he's going to have to lay out his vision of where the country needs to be on jobs. I think from what we've heard, it's going to have a lot of very important elements to it. And I think he has to make it clear, and with the conviction that he has taken on this and other issues, that he is really going to be planting a flag in the ground on this issue, that this is the conversation America needs to have, and he's going to be engaging the country in this way. The only thing I would add to the elements that you talked about earlier, Ezra, as part of the plan, is the whole housing issue, which may not be a big part of the president's speech because a lot of the decisions in that area are not totally within his control. They're under the control of the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac conservatorship. But if you were able to give a lot of people who were current on their mortgages but underwater the same refinancing rates that others have in the marketplace, that could be a considerable boost above and beyond what the president may be talking about tonight, and above the particular dollars and size of the package that you were talking about.
Right, and could even save the federal government money by preventing foreclosures among folks who are backing up their mortgages.
That's exactly right. And in terms of the impact on the real economy, that could be a very important piece of it. Again, it's not totally within the White House's control, although they're obviously part of a conversation. And I really hope that decision will be made going forward.
Representative Chris Van Hollen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Ezra.
Coming up next, win one for the Gipper.